they never tell you this part. Every major collapse in history looks different on the surface, different countries, different leaders, different excuses, but underneath, the same quiet war is always being fought. Not armies, not politics, money. And right now, whether you realize it or not, you are standing in the middle of one of the most important money wars ever recorded. Silver, gold, Bitcoin. Only one question matters, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why choosing wrong doesn't just cost profit, it costs survival. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing the numbers in your bank account still exist, but they don't buy what they used to. Rent doubles. Food feels expensive for no reason. Savings you worked decades for suddenly feel small. This isn't a future prediction. This has already happened again and again across thousands of years of financial history. The names change. The currencies change. The ending never does. And every time it happens, people run toward the same three things. Not stocks, not bonds, not promises. They run toward assets that exist outside the system. Assets they believe will outlive the collapse. But here's where it gets dangerous. Because history shows us something uncomfortable. In every financial war, most people choose the wrong side, not because they're stupid, but because they're late. Because by the time the truth becomes obvious, the exit doors are already closing. So the real question isn't whether silver, gold, or Bitcoin is best. The real question is, which one survives when the system itself is under stress? To understand this, we have to rewind far beyond modern markets. Long before banks, before stock exchanges, before central authorities, money had one job: to store human labor across time. If you worked today, your effort needed to be preserved for tomorrow. Early civilizations tested everything: grain, cattle, shells, but only two metals passed every test: gold and silver. They didn't rot. They couldn't be printed. They required effort to extract. And most importantly, they were trusted across borders, languages, and empires. Silver became the money of daily life. Gold became the money of kings, treasuries, and long-distance trade. For thousands of years, financial systems rose and fell, but this foundation stayed intact. Empires collapsed, currencies vanished, but gold and silver simply changed hands. They didn't need belief. They didn't need marketing. They didn't need permission. Then, something changed. Governments discovered that controlling money meant controlling people. If you could issue currency without fully backing it, you could fund wars without raising taxes. You could promise prosperity without having the resources to deliver it. At first, this power was limited. Paper money was still tied to gold and silver. But history shows a pattern that repeats with terrifying precision. The moment money is no longer fully backed, spending explodes. Debt grows, confidence slowly erodes. And eventually, the system breaks. This happened in ancient Rome when silver coins were quietly diluted. It happened in China when paper money was overissued. It happened in Europe during countless monetary experiments. And it happened again in the 20th century, when the final link between money and gold was severed. That moment changed everything. For the first time in history, money became purely trust-based. Not trust in metal, trust in governments, trust in central banks, trust that the people managing the system would restrain themselves. History had already shown how that ends, but this time the scale was global. At first it felt like progress. Economic growth accelerated. Credit expanded. Markets boomed. But underneath, something fragile was forming. Money was no longer scarce. Debt became the engine of growth, and every crisis required more money creation to fix the last one. This is where the war quietly began. Gold never disappeared. Central banks never stopped holding it. Even as they told the public it was outdated, they kept buying it. Not because it's shiny, because gold has no counterparty risk. It doesn't depend on a system functioning correctly. When trust collapses, gold doesn't need to be rescued. It simply is. Silver, on the other hand, took a different path. It remained money, but it also became industrial, electronics, solar panels, medical technology. Modern civilization started consuming silver at a rate history had never seen before. Unlike gold, much of that silver was never recycled. It was lost, dispersed, buried inside devices. While gold accumulated, silver disappeared. And that imbalance quietly set the stage for something most people still don't understand. Then Bitcoin entered the story, and everything became more complicated. Bitcoin wasn't created to get you rich. It was created as a response to failure. Born directly out of the 2008 financial crisis, it was a protest encoded into software, a system with fixed supply. No central authority, no ability to print more when things go wrong. For the first time, digital scarcity existed, and for a generation raised inside collapsing trust, this felt revolutionary. Bitcoin introduced a new idea into the money war. What if survival didn't require physical metal? What if mathematics could replace trust? What if money could exist beyond borders, beyond banks, beyond governments? That idea spread faster than any monetary innovation in history. But history teaches us to be careful with first impressions. Every new form of money faces the same test, not during boom times, but during stress, during fear, during moments when people aren't chasing returns, but safety. Gold has passed this test for over 5,000 years. Silver has passed it too, though in a quieter way. Bitcoin has only faced it once or twice, always within a system still standing. The real test hasn't arrived yet, and that's where the war intensifies. When financial pressure increases, governments don't lose control peacefully. They tighten regulations. They track capital. They protect their currencies. History shows that when survival is at stake, rules change overnight. Assets that depend on infrastructure exchanges, electricity, internet, legal frameworks become vulnerable, not useless. Vulnerable. Gold doesn't need a network. Silver doesn't need an app. They don't rely on uptime. They don't rely on policy decisions. That doesn't mean Bitcoin fails. It means Bitcoin fights a different kind of battle. Silver's role in this war is the most misunderstood. People see it as cheap gold. History says otherwise. During periods of monetary stress, silver has repeatedly outperformed gold because it starts undervalued and ends essential. It moves from ignored to hunted, from abundant to scarce. And unlike gold, silver sits at the intersection of money and necessity. You can't modernize without it. This creates a dangerous imbalance. Financial demand and industrial demand pulling on the same limited supply. History tells us that when this happens, prices don't rise slowly. They snap. Gold, meanwhile, plays defense. It doesn't need hype. It doesn't need innovation. It simply absorbs fear. When confidence collapses, Capital doesn't ask questions, it runs to gold. This isn't belief. This is behavior, repeated across centuries. Bitcoin plays offense. It thrives on distrust of institutions, on currency debasement, on generational shifts in belief. It doesn't replace gold. It challenges the system itself, and that makes it powerful and threatening. This is why the war isn't really silver versus gold versus Bitcoin. The war is between systems of trust, physical scarcity, digital scarcity, institutional control. History suggests one brutal truth. In times of calm, innovation wins. In times of chaos, survival wins. People don't abandon what's proven when fear takes over. They abandon what's unfamiliar. They return to what history has already tested. This doesn't mean Bitcoin disappears. It means it hasn't yet proven what gold and silver already have: survivability without permission. And here's the part most people miss. The winners of financial wars aren't those who predict the future perfectly. They're the ones who understand history early enough to position before panic. By the time mainstream media starts talking about safe havens, it's already late. By the time regulations tighten, choices narrow. By the time everyone agrees something is valuable, it's already expensive. History rewards preparation, not reaction. So where does that leave you? Standing at a crossroads that has existed in different forms for thousands of years. One path leads to physical money with no memory of politics. Another leads to digital money with no memory of borders. Another bridges both worlds, hiding in plain sight, underestimated until demand exposes scarcity. The war for financial survival isn't coming. It's already unfolding quietly, unevenly, invisibly to those who think history no longer matters. And the most dangerous assumption you can make right now is believing you will all have time to decide later. If this perspective challenged what you thought you knew about money, don't ignore that feeling. That discomfort is awareness forming. Stay ahead of the curve. Subscribe, because the next breakdown will go deeper into what happens when this war reaches its final phase, and why most people will only understand it after the outcome is already decided.